All right, hello. This is Brian from College by Brian, and I am here and very happy to be joined by Tania Boisson from Oakton Community College, and she serves as the student care coordinator. And I've known Tania for a couple of years, and you know, in thinking about working within higher education and in college and a university, uh, the subject of mental health, is kind of a burgeoning subject and has been for years, and is always something that educators will hopefully care about. When thinking about the student experience, and to that end, I was very excited to have Tania join us today to talk about that. So, Tania, thank you for being here.
Not a problem. My pleasure.
Um, so, obviously, right now, when we think about the college setting and the current climate, this
Mhm.
looks like um, a global pandemic as far as COVID-19. And
Mhm.
we also think about civic unrest, and with the most recent as far as the murder of George Floyd. And it's it's unbelievable, just because college students anyway, when they enter college, there's so many different experiences and variables that are anxiety producing, and students
Mhm.
are coming in with other conditions. And my first question for you would be, what trends have you seen in terms of student care, but especially now, like this kind of timely sense of COVID-19 and civic unrest?
Mhm. So I would say in general, like pre-pandemic, pre-civil unrest, in thinking about college students today, they're very different than even when our parents went to college and so many years ago. But especially the community college student, they're faced with a lot of different issues. Some community college students may be working full time or part time outside of the college. They may be going to school part time instead of full time. They may have dependents, whether that be children or family members, some maybe first time college students, etc. So, a lot of these things already place some additional burdens on college success and just academic success in general. Then, when you bring in a pandemic, civil unrest, and especially one that is impacting certain groups, um, where these groups may even be the ones that are traditionally maybe experiencing more of the other um, what's the word I'm looking for? The other responsibilities outside of school. And so I think it just adds a whole other layer of concerns and needs. So especially under like care coordination, so things that are coming up, especially now, are a lot of financial burdens,
Hmm.
or students just not really being able to navigate the online process. I know for me, I don't know that I would be able to do school online. I think if that was my only option, I would figure it out. But for a lot of students, when you have equity issues or you have a lack of needs, maybe no internet at home, how many students relied on the college for a lot of these resources? I have many students who they'd come in the morning, leave at night. And so transitioning to being at home, they've struggled a lot, whether that be the literal resources, so computers, the library, etc., the cafeteria, a place to rest and relax, whether that be their peers being present, to even just the faculty and staff as support. I had a student who said, I had my routine. I went to so and so's office, and I went to see you, then I went to this person and that person. And so I really had to reiterate that, yes, we might not be in person, but what are some ways that you can recreate, for lack of a better word, that same support system through this virtual setting? But that can be difficult and it's not available to everybody.
Hmm.
Some, again, maybe have lacking internet. I've had some students that just can do phone appointments. Or some, I've even heard from counselors, students who maybe they don't have the most supportive home environment. And so even having to do chat to try and check in with their therapist, or having to lie and figure out, okay, I'm going for a walk, and that's the time that I can hold a meeting with somebody from the college. So really just like the break has really shown a lot of the equity gaps, as well as just a lack of resources that students have and how much the colleges really buffered a lot of these supports and experiences for our students.
So you brought up so many good points because I was thinking about I had a conversation some weeks back, and you brought up just kind of the so at a community college level that the who is the student,
Mhm.
and just the variety of different places that individual is coming from, or individuals are coming from, is that you have traditional students, but you also have non-traditional students, you have adult students, and the makeup of a college is looks differently than, as you said, from our parents and from our grandparents. And how do you meet those students where they're at? And anyway, this conversation I was thinking about, in the midst of this virtual kind of world in which we find ourselves, the sadness, for students that are first generation students that weren't really able to celebrate, let's say, like their high school graduation or a college graduation,
Mhm.
and then potentially trying to enter in as a first gen student into the college environment for the first time,
Mhm.
or for their family, and just to how difficult that must be, and very thankful that there are services and support structures, to help those students where they are. But it's
Mhm.
quite the challenge. Um,
For sure.
yeah, and to that end, I'd be curious, for students about, let's say, about to start college for the first
Mhm.
time, or about to start their academic year, and returning. Um, what with everything that's kind of wrought with potential anxiety, what would be some of your advice for those students that are entering into this academic year?
Yeah. I would say most importantly, I would know when to ask for help and don't be afraid to ask for help. There's so many resources, and I know we'll probably get to that at some point during this time, so I won't jump ahead. But there's so many resources at the student's disposal. And I know for me in my college experience, I only knew the resources that I needed. I didn't know what else was available on a college campus until I actually started working at Oakton. So I was just used to like the African American Academic Network, which provided advising and some tutoring. Um, I was a McNair scholar. So just like the different things I utilize, that's all I really knew about. So really get to know what's on your campus, what's available to you. Even though a lot of schools and things will be remote, like I mentioned earlier, still try and replicate any sort of support system that you previously had, whether that be from the K through 12 system. We may not have the same titles, or a lot may be different, but there is someone who may fulfill that point person you had, may fulfill the maybe the counselor you had, etc. Um, so never be scared to ask for help. I would also say really learn to self advocate. That one is a very key tool because no one's going to advocate for you unless they know that you need that support. People will start to do that once they get to know you, but before that, you self advocacy is so crucial because no one knows you better than yourself. I think during this time, it's especially important for students to know their strengths, their challenges, their desires, their interests, their triggers, their learning styles, especially right now with us being remote for a lot of courses. Know what your style is and know what kind of supports you're needing, so that you can advocate for yourself and get the support that you need for these things. As much as this can be a time to really grow and learn and have a good time, like you mentioned earlier, Brian, college can be very stressful. And then you add civil unrest, a pandemic, all that really just brings it to a different magnitude. So, really, just knowing your resources, not being afraid to ask for help, and really being able to self advocate and know yourself.
That's a lot of that resonates with what I've heard from some admissions personnel. And as far as
Mhm.
getting ready and uh, trying to get to college, and for the first time too, is that and that phrase of don't be afraid to ask questions and make sure that
Mhm.
you do reach out. And I like that as far as just the advocacy, but
Yeah.
also, well, especially the self advocacy and the reflection that kind of has to go into that is that,
Mhm.
um, yeah, is so critical.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, you touched on some of the services that are out there, and it's always refreshing to hear of people that are out of college and have that had really kind of tried to take advantage of the resources that are there or services or ways to connect.
Mhm.
I say that because I didn't do any of those things when I was in college, and I can look back now and be like, wow, what was I thinking, or did I know what I should have
Mhm.
done? And I
Yeah.
don't think so. And but for those that may not be aware, I'm just curious what exists out there. And when we think about mental health and like student self-care, what are the resources that exist? You can touch on, obviously, where you're currently at, but as you said,
Mhm.
like a lot of services, this just isn't specific to one institution. Like this is through the landscape of higher education. But where would be some things to point to?
For sure. So as with wellness, I will start with the mental health piece. Counseling services, health services, that is pretty universal across universities and colleges. It may look different. So not every maybe community college will have a wellness center like we do at Oakton. Some community colleges may outsource their counseling services, but there should be some sort of support available for mental health. For sure, at 4-year institutions, you will have, they're usually a card like CAPS, so the counseling centers. Look out for those. Those will always be free counseling sessions. The amounts of sessions will differ from school to school, but something that I can confidently say is that no one's going to just kick you out without getting you linked to some longer term care if that's what a student is needing.
Mm.
Um, Another key piece I would say with my role, so as the care coordinator at Oakton, not a lot of community colleges may have the title of my position, but in a 4-year institution, my role tends to be housed in the Dean of Students office.
Mm.
So any students who are lacking basic needs, who are needing help navigating college resources, or just experiencing any life events or crises or anything that's taking place that's really impacting their academic success, I really would encourage a student to make sure that they're getting help right away. Their financial support's available, linkage to different resources, whether that be a food pantry, getting help paying for rent, getting money for other things, or just supports in navigating different resources on campus. I I tend to think of myself as like a point person and often. And so, there are some students that I will literally walk them to different offices. Here's meet so and so at this office, they can help you with this. I find that, being able to call someone directly as opposed to saying, hey, did you go to Learning Center? They can help you. I can say, hey, I know Stephanie at the Learning Center. Let me walk you over. Let's call her and see. Things like that. Additionally, I would really recommend getting involved in student life, especially at the community college level, or even as a commuter, because you can feel so disconnected from the campus. But even now, when we're all remote, there will still be remote ways to be involved with college. And so I would really recommend getting involved and figuring out what those remote options look like. There's no better way to meet people and just kind of really learn more about your institution as well than getting involved in different clubs or activities and things of that nature. Tutoring is always available. Students who maybe are new to college, if you had an IEP in high school, we don't have IEPs in college, but we do have a disability resource center, and that will be across the board at any institution. Tutoring, career and transfer centers, that will be across the board. So, all of these things are ways to really make that college experience well rounded. You'll find them at any institution.
That's awesome. And you name so many different offices and different resources that are out there that are not just housed within kind of one department, if you were.
Mhm.
And I think that's so critical is that, um, when I've had discussions with students in the past, it's trying to say that, listen, these aren't these are here for you as a student, as a
Mhm.
paying student, and that it shouldn't be kind of an isolated journey, that these are supports
Right.
that are here for you. But and it can be hard to know, I think, for students like where to go.
Mhm.
But what we know is that for those students that are engaged in that way, that has a correlation to academic success, both
Mhm.
at their current institution, but if they're looking to transfer to their next institution, if they continue that journey. And part of that is, with all those connections, is that uh, you have a more robust experience, and in fact a
Mhm.
community to kind of really connect with, like during your time, which is so powerful to be able to connect kind of a community to community. So that really struck me when you said all those different resources, because yeah, it's as far as care for a student, yeah, that looks like a lot of different kind of touch points. So
Oh, yeah. And there's some days, Brian, that depending on the student, especially, I tend to find this with me and my minority students,
mm,
where they, or maybe specifically my Black students, they see someone who looks like them, even my Latinx students, a person of color. And so they latch on, we build a rapport. And so rather than going to financial aid, they're coming to me with this letter. And it's like, hey, can you help me figure this out?
yeah,
Maybe the person has had a bad experience at a different office, or maybe they're just scared and they haven't built those self advocacy skills. So there's some days where I'm wearing all those hats. By no means am I a financial aid advisor, but I'm reading that letter with them, really trying to help them navigate it. Let's call someone down there or taking them down there. And so I think I really want to stress to students too, even if you have one person that's your support, they are willing to help you, even if it's not their job. I
mm,
haven't met someone, even I'll speak to Oakton, who's going to say it's not my job.
mm,
They're willing to help. And so if you go to so and so for tutoring, or you go to CTC, like whatever the case may be, ask some questions about other things and they can get you to who you need to get to. They can help you navigate that. So I think that's so important because sometimes students suffer in silence,
yeah,
especially our first generation students, especially our minority students. So I think it's just so crucial, like find people and find someone, even a peer, they can even direct you. So I think all that even goes back to my earlier point of don't be afraid to ask for help because it's so crucial. And a lot of times we come from cultures or families that really stress the importance of not asking for help or just figuring out by yourself or not really disclosing, maybe being undocumented or other types of,
yeah.
taboo things, or, we're homeless or we're this, we're that.
Yeah, no, there's so many people that are in the margins or experiencing
Mhm.
college in a way that is, one of it could be, just confusion, but also a fear, and
Mhm.
but to have someone to advocate as well, and to be able to lead them from office to office,
Yeah.
and to really kind of show them the ropes too, is powerful. But
Mhm.
really appreciate your advocacy for students. And in the short amount of time that I've known you, Tanya, you're such a shining star as far as just a professional that really cares deeply about students and their experience and their health.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, thank you for being willing to do this, and just for all that you do for students. I really, yeah, I appreciate it.
No problem, Brian. I'm happy to do it. And I really stand by the idea that if a student's not doing well, then they're not going to do well in the classroom. We really can't expect them to. So,
Hmm,
really have to look at the whole student, and support all their needs in order for them to persist at school.
fantastic. Well, thank you.